The first alpha hit the conference table hard enough to crack the wood, the second one growled, the third released enough pheromones to make a grown beta faint near the door. And I almost dropped 6 overpriced coffees, because apparently nobody in this city could process emotions without turning into a wildlife documentary. Seriously? I muttered, tightening my grip on the cardboard carrier. It's 9 in the morning. Blackstone Tower gleamed around me like someone had turned corporate arrogance into architecture. Glass walls, black marble floors, silver elevators polished so clean I could see my own exhausted reflection. In them, messy dark curls, pale face, oversized gray hoodie under my mediation department jacket, and the dead eyes of an Omega who had worked a double shift because Trevor from scheduling had food poisoning. Trevor always had food poisoning when powerful alphas were involved. Coward. The conference room doors stood open ahead of me, and the air pouring out felt thick enough to chew. Scent suppressors hummed in the vents, but they were losing badly. Alpha pressure rolled through the hallway in hot, invisible waves. Sharp cedar, burned steel, blood-warm musk. A normal Omega would have dropped their gaze. A smart Omega would have walked away. I stepped over the unconscious beta near the door and whispered, "Sorry, buddy," because apparently I was neither normal nor smart. Inside, 12 people looked ready to die for a shipping route. Not love, not family, not justice. A shipping route. At the head of the long black table, 3 alpha leaders stood in various stages of emotional constipation. One had claws out, one had his teeth bared. One was leaning forward like he planned to solve the dispute by chewing someone's face off. Around them, aides and negotiators struggled to stay upright. 2 Omegas had gone completely still in their chairs, eyes lowered, shoulders trembling. A beta security guard had one hand on his stun baton and the facial expression of a man reconsidering every career choice he had ever made. I cleared my throat. No one heard me. Of course not. Why hear the person carrying caffeine when you could perform dominance theater? I lifted the coffee carrier higher. Pierce. Pack order? The alpha with the crack table hobby snapped his head toward me. His pressure slammed into the room. The windows vibrated. My skin prickled, but not from submission, more like static before a storm. Annoying, unpleasant, mildly itchy. I sighed. That was when the temperature seemed to drop. Not literally, worse. Socially, every person in the room looked past me. The growling stopped. The pheromone pressure didn't disappear, but it changed shape, like a storm suddenly realizing there was a bigger storm behind it. I turned. Logan Pierce stood at the doorway. I knew him by reputation, because everyone in the city knew Logan Pierce by reputation. Alpha of the Pierce Pack, owner of Blackstone Tower, negotiator, predator, nightmare, in an expensive suit. He was taller than I expected, which was rude. His black suit fit like it had been threatened into perfection. His dark hair was neatly styled back. His posture calm, one hand resting near the silver watch on his wrist. He didn't bare his teeth. He didn't growl. He didn't need to. The room lowered itself around him. Eyes dropped. Shoulders folded inward. Even the furious alphas went still. My body, however, remained deeply unimpressed. Mostly because I had not slept. My left sneaker was wet from stepping in a puddle outside, and one of the coffees was leaking onto my fingers. Logan's gaze moved across the room with quiet precision. Then it landed on me. I felt it like a hand under my chin. Not forcing, not yet. Just noticing. His eyes were dark gray, almost silver under the conference lights. Beautiful, in the way a knife could be beautiful if you ignored the obvious problem. "You," he said. His voice was low, controlled, smooth enough to make weaker people agree to terrible contracts. Unfortunately for him, I had already dealt with payroll before coming here. Nothing scared me anymore. "Me?" I asked. His gaze flicked to the coffee carrier. "Why are you standing in the middle of a closed negotiation?" "Because somebody ordered oat milk lattes with 2 pumps of vanilla and a superiority complex." No one breathed. One of the Omegas at the table looked at me like I had just slapped God with a receipt. Logan did not move, but something sharpened in his expression. The air pressed down. There it was. His dominance, not loud like the others, not messy, not emotional, precise. It slid through the room like gravity remembering its job. Chairs creaked. The beta security guard swallowed hard. One of the rival alphas actually took half a step back before he seemed to realize he had done it. My pulse kicked once. Not fear. Recognition. My body knew what he was. Every Omega instinct buried in my bones should have folded, softened, surrendered. Instead, something inside me went cold. Quiet. A door closing. The pressure hit me and broke apart. Logan's eyes narrowed. Oh, so he felt that too. I walked forward, because standing there while everyone stared was beginning to make me feel like the entertainment portion of a very expensive funeral. I set the coffee carrier on the table. One cup slid toward Logan's side. He didn't touch it. I did, by accident, mostly. I took a sip, winced, and said, "Who drinks this much vanilla? That's not coffee. That's dessert with anxiety." Someone made a strangled sound. Logan stared at the cup in my hand. His coffee, apparently. Perfect. Wonderful. Love that for me. The alpha who had cracked the table recovered first. "Pierce. Control your staff." I turned to him. "I'm not his staff." Logan said, "No." Just one word. The alpha's mouth shut. I hated that it worked. I hated more that Logan didn't even seem proud of it. For him, obedience wasn't victory. It was weather, normal, expected. How exhausting. The rival alpha snarled again, trying to push his pressure outward. My headache spiked. Something in my chest tightened, and then the room snapped silent. Not emotionally, physically. The sense thinned, the pressure vanished. Every alpha in the room stiffened at once. The Omegas lifted their heads, blinking like people waking from underwater. The beta near the wall sucked in a breath so loud it hurt to hear. I froze. My fingers tightened around Logan Pierce's stupid vanilla latte. Oh no, not again. Logan's gaze moved from the room to me, slowly, carefully, like I had turned into something rare and possibly explosive. The cracked table alpha touched his own throat. "What did you do?" "I delivered coffee," I said. My voice came out too flat, too calm. My heart was not calm. My heart was trying to climb up my ribs and escape through my mouth. "I ordered this room settled," Logan said, looking at me as if every word mattered. "And you erased it." "I didn't erase anything." "You did." "I didn't mean to." That part came out before I could stop it. A flicker crossed his face. Interest. Not fear, not anger. Interest. Great. Exactly what every Omega wanted from a terrifying alpha billionaire. Curiosity with cheekbones. I pushed the coffee back toward him. "If one more alpha growls in this room, I'm billing all of you for emotional damages." No one laughed. Cowards. I added, "And therapy." Still nothing. Probably vitamins too. "You all look terrible." That got one tiny choking sound from the beta security guard. Logan's mouth almost moved. Almost. Not a smile. Not even close. But something. The room remained unnaturally quiet. The alphas looked wrong without their pressure. Too human. Too exposed. Too aware of their own breathing. The Omegas looked confused, then relieved, then frightened by their own relief. I knew that look. I had worn it before. The first time I realized I could stand under alpha pressure and still think my own thoughts, I had cried in a public bathroom for 20 minutes. Not because I felt powerful, because freedom felt terrifying when no one had taught you what to do with it. Logan stepped closer. Every instinct in the room tracked him. Mine didn't. Or maybe it did. But not in the way it was supposed to. I noticed the clean line of his jaw. The faint scar near his left eyebrow. The way his fingers flexed once at his side, like control was something he held physically. He stopped in front of me, too close for a stranger, too calm for a man whose entire dominance had just failed. "What is your name?" he asked. I should have lied. I should have said Trevor. Trevor deserved it. Instead, because I was tired and stupid, and apparently committed to ruining my own week, I said, "Chris Vale." "Chris Vale," he repeated. The way he said my name made it sound like evidence. I hated it. I also hated that my body noticed. "I work for the Neutral Mediation Office," I said quickly. "Temporary assistant. Extremely underpaid. Emotionally unsupported. Not available for pack drama. You walked through 3 alpha pressure fields without lowering your eyes. Maybe I have bad instincts. You suppressed mine. Maybe yours needed suppressing." Behind him, someone inhaled sharply. Logan didn't look away from me. The silence stretched. Then he said, very softly, "You are either very brave." His dominance brushed the edge of the room again. Careful this time. Testing. My inner coldness rose to meet it like a hand pushing back against glass. The pressure dissolved before it touched me. Logan's pupils widened slightly. For the first time since entering the room, he looked genuinely unsettled. "Or very dangerous," he finished. I smiled, because fear makes me sarcastic, and attraction apparently makes me suicidal. Those are not mutually exclusive. This time, Logan Pierce smiled. Barely. It was small, sharp, and gone in a second. But I saw it. Worse. He knew I saw it. I grabbed the empty coffee carrier and stepped back. Great meeting. Very productive. Nobody died. Low bar, but still. The beta security guard moved aside as I headed for the door. Smart man. I liked him. Before leaving, I glanced back once. Mistake. Logan was still watching me. Not like an alpha watching an omega. Not like a leader watching a problem. Like a man who had spent his entire life believing gravity belonged to him. And had just seen someone float. I walked out before my face could betray anything embarrassing. In the hallway, the unconscious beta was sitting up now. "You okay?" I asked. He blinked at me. "Are you?" "No," I said, "but I have Logan Pierce's coffee, so at least my day has a theme." I kept walking. Behind me, inside the conference room, the silence held. Then Logan's voice followed, low and controlled. "Nora." "Yes, sir?" A woman answered. "Find out everything about Chris Vale." My stomach dropped. But his next words were worse. "And do it quietly." I turned the corner, pressed my back against the cold glass wall, and stared at the stolen coffee in my hand. My fingers were shaking now. Finally. "Great," I whispered to myself. "Amazing. Fantastic." I took another sip. Still too sweet. Still expensive. Still his, and somewhere behind me, Logan Pierce had stopped seeing me as invisible, which in my experience was usually when trouble began. By midnight, I had become a rumor. By 1 in the morning, I had become a threat. By 1:30, 3 men in black coats tried to shove me into an unmarked van behind a noodle shop in the lower city. So, overall, a very educational day. "Easy," one of them said, gripping my arm hard enough to bruise. "We're not here to hurt you." "Oh, good," I gasped, twisting against him. Because kidnapping is much nicer when it comes with customer service. Rain hammered the alley around us, turning neon signs into bleeding colors across wet concrete. The underground pack districts always looked like the city had buried its worst instincts under street level, and then added advertisements for cheap liquor. Graffiti covered the walls. Old territory marks overlapped each other in paint and claw scratches. Somewhere nearby, music thudded from an illegal pheromone den, heavy bass shaking puddles beneath my sneakers. The man holding me was an alpha. I could tell by the pressure curling off him. Bitter, aggressive, trying to force my body into panic. Unfortunately, my body had a long-standing policy of making powerful men deeply uncomfortable. I slammed my heel into his foot. He cursed. I elbowed him in the ribs. He did not release me. Rude. Another alpha stepped closer, his eyes flashing gold. "Stop fighting." His dominance hit like hot metal. For half a second, my breath caught, not because I wanted to obey, because something inside me answered. Cold, quiet, vast. The pressure collapsed. All 3 men staggered. The one gripping me suddenly loosened his hand, like his muscles had forgotten the point of violence. What the hell? He started. A black shape moved at the mouth of the alley. Then, Logan Pierce arrived, like the city had personally summoned a nightmare in an expensive coat. He did not run. That was somehow worse. He walked through the rain with terrifying calm, black hair damp, coat shifting around him, silver watch catching neon light. His scent cut through the alley. Dark cedar, storm air, clean steel. The kidnappers turned. Bad decision. Logan's alpha pressure exploded outward. Not messy, not wild. Focused. The air buckled. One attacker dropped to one knee. Another bared his teeth and lunged. Logan caught him by the throat and slammed him into the brick wall hard enough to shake loose dust from the fire escape. I made a very dignified sound. Something like HRK. The third attacker pulled a blade. Logan looked at it. Just looked. Then he broke the man's wrist with one efficient twist. The knife clattered into a puddle. I stared. Okay, I said weakly. So that was excessive but organized. Logan's gaze snapped to me. Are you hurt? No. His eyes dropped to the red marks on my arm. The alley temperature changed. Chris, I said no. That is not what I asked. You literally asked if I was hurt. His jaw tightened. Even soaked by rain, surrounded by groaning kidnappers, Logan Pierce looked like he belonged on a magazine cover titled, Men Who Ruin Your Life Professionally. He stepped toward me. My pulse reacted before my brain could file a complaint. Then, one of the attackers groaned and tried to rise. My panic spiked. The cold inside me surged. Every alpha in the alley went still, Logan included. His dominance vanished so abruptly that the world felt hollow. The attackers gasped, like men shoved underwater. Logan's shoulders shifted, just slightly, as if his body had expected gravity and found nothing beneath his feet. I backed up. I didn't mean to. Logan looked at me through the rain, not angry, not afraid, studying. Again, I hated that look more than the kidnapping. That was wider than before, he said. Great. Love, measurable personal disasters. He stepped over one of the fallen men and took off his coat. Before I could protest, he draped it around my shoulders. It was warm, heavy. It smelled like him. My brain immediately left the building. No, I said, grabbing the lapels like they had offended me. Logan blinked once. No? No. Don't do the coat thing. You're shaking. I'm angry. You are cold. I contain multitudes. A faint sound came from behind him. One of his security guards had arrived and was very clearly trying not to laugh. Logan did not look amused. Your address is compromised, he said. Your workplace is compromised. Every pack in this city will know what you are by morning. What the first am? I repeated. Wow, charming. His expression tightened. That is not what I meant. It is always what people mean. For a second, rain filled the silence between us. Then he said, quieter. You are coming with me. I laughed. It came out slightly hysterical. Absolutely not. This is not negotiable. That's what kidnappers say. I just stopped kidnappers. And now you're doing premium kidnapping. His eyes narrowed. Protective custody, rich people, crime. That line was Maya's actually. When I called her from Logan's car 20 minutes later, she said it so loudly through the phone that Logan, sitting beside me in the back seat, definitely heard. Put him on, Maya demanded. No, Chris, no. Because you're going to threaten him. I am a paramedic. I know where all the breakable parts are. Exactly. Logan held out his hand. I stared at it. What? The phone. You want to speak to Maya? I want to reassure her. I handed it over because I was curious and possibly concussed. Logan lifted the phone to his ear. Ms. Torres. A pause. Then, Maya's voice exploded so loudly I heard every word. If you hurt him, I will turn your expensive organs into a community donation project. Logan listened calmly, then said, Understood. Another pause. Yes, I will provide an address. Pause. No, I am not sedating him. I gasped. That was an option? Logan looked at me. No. Suspiciously fast answer. He returned the phone. Maya came back on, breathing hard. Chris, are you okay? I looked out the window as the car rose from the lower districts into the glittering upper city. Rain ran down the glass, breaking Blackstone Tower into silver fragments ahead. No, I said honestly. But I stole his coat. Good. Establish dominance. I don't think that works on him. From beside me, Logan said, It does not. Maya whispered, Oh my God, he can hear me. Yes. Tell Murder Ken I'm watching him. I looked at Logan. She says, Good night. Murder Ken? He asked. I ended the call. Logan's penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of Blackstone Tower because apparently subtlety had died and left him real estate. Floor-to-ceiling windows surrounded the main room, revealing a rain-covered skyline glittering like broken diamonds. Dark wood, low lighting, smooth stone. A massive kitchen no one emotionally healthy could possibly need. The air was controlled, clean, almost scentless. Beautiful. Cold. Empty. I stepped inside, still wrapped in his coat, and said, This place looks like a villain monologues here. Logan removed his gloves. It has good acoustics. I turned, slowly. Was that a joke? No. Worse. A woman in a gray suit appeared from the hallway carrying a tablet. Sharp bob haircut. Tired eyes. Expression of someone who managed disasters before breakfast. Nora Quinn, she said. Logan's assistant. I prepared the guest room. Against my will? Most things in this building happen against someone's will, she said. You'll adjust. I liked her immediately. Logan gave her a look. She ignored it with the confidence of a woman who had survived him for years. Food is stocked. Scent suppressors are recalibrated. Maya Torres has been sent the address, security protocols, and a very polite message assuring her, You are not being murdered. Did you use the word murdered? I asked. No. Legal advised against it. Logan pinched the bridge of his nose. The guest room was larger than my entire apartment. I hated it. I hated the soft bed, the private bathroom, the folded clothes waiting on a chair. I hated that the clothes fit. I especially hated that the black sweater was probably Logan's because it smelled faintly like him and made my skin feel too aware of itself. I wore it anyway because my own hoodie was wet and smelled like alley water and poor decisions. When I stepped back into the kitchen, Logan looked up. His gaze paused, just for a second. On the sweater? On me? Something tightened low in my stomach. Absolutely not. I opened his refrigerator with unnecessary aggression. Do you own normal food? What is normal food? That answer tells me everything. He watched as I pulled out eggs, butter, flour, and expensive chocolate. What are you doing? Stress baking. It is 2 a.m. Trauma has no schedule. Nora, passing through with her tablet, said, finally, Someone useful. By 3, the penthouse smelled like chocolate chip cookies. By 3:15, Logan Pierce stood in his own kitchen, holding one like it was a contract clause he didn't trust. You eat it, I said. I know how cookies work. Do you? He took a bite. His expression changed so slightly, most people would have missed it. I did not. You like it, I said. I did not say that. You emotionally implied it. Nora took 3 cookies and vanished. Later, when exhaustion finally dragged me towards sleep, I heard a low sound from the balcony. A growl. I froze. Then, because I was apparently determined to die creatively, I opened the glass door. A massive black wolf stood in the rain. Huge. Terrifying. Silver-gray eyes. Logan's wolf form looked like something ancient forests warned each other about. I stared at him. He stared back. Water dripped from his fur. I said, Princess? The wolf's ears went flat. Oh, you hate that. He growled. I pointed at him. Don't start. I have had a long day. A few minutes later, Logan came back inside human again, dressed in black lounge pants and a shirt that should have been illegal under several emotional safety laws. You named my wolf Princess, he said. It came to me spiritually. I should throw you off the balcony. You won't. Maya has your address. He looked like he wanted to argue but couldn't. I smiled, then ruined it by asking the question that had been sitting in my chest all night. Do you even know who you are without people fearing you? The room went silent. Logan's face closed. For a moment, I thought he would snap, use that voice, that pressure, that alpha certainty. Instead, he looked toward the windows. Rain moved over the glass like the city was crying for dramatic effect. No, he said, one word. Honest. It hit me harder than dominance ever had. Before I could answer, footsteps sounded from the hallway. A young man appeared at the edge of the room. Slim, elegant, soft brown hair, careful posture. Omega. His scent was faint, deliberately suppressed, like someone taught him to take up as little space as possible. Logan, he said. Logan turned. Eli. You should be asleep. So should you. Eli's gaze moved to me, then to the cookies, then back to me. You're Chris. I am currently wearing your brother's sweater and insulting his interior design. Yes. Eli smiled. Small, but real. I like you. That was fast. You talk to Logan like he's a mildly annoying coworker. Logan said, I am standing right here. We know, Eli and I said together. And just like that, the penthouse felt a little less empty. Later, in the guest room, I lay under sheets softer than financial corruption and stared at the ceiling. My arm still hurt where the attacker grabbed me. My body still remembered Logan stepping into that alley like violence had chosen his side. But worse than that, I remembered his quiet no, not proud, not defensive, just honest. I turned onto my side and buried my face in the pillow. It smelled faintly like cedar and storm air. My pulse warmed, my stomach twisted. My Omega instincts, which had ignored every alpha command all my life, chose that moment to notice Logan Pierce, not as danger, as shelter. I sat up immediately. No, I whispered into the dark. Absolutely not. The room did not answer. Rude. I pointed at the ceiling like it had personally betrayed me. I refused to become emotionally involved with a walking red flag. Outside, rain tapped against the glass. Somewhere beyond the wall, Logan moved quietly through his cold, beautiful home. And my stupid heart listened. By the end of the week, people online had started calling me the Quiet Omega, which sounded mysterious and powerful until Maya nearly choked on her coffee, laughing. You sound like an indie perfume brand, she informed me from the Pierce penthouse couch. Or a very emotionally unavailable vampire. I am emotionally unavailable. You cried during a dog food commercial last month. The puppy found a home, Maya. That's not the point. Across the kitchen, Logan pretended not to listen while reading through security reports on his tablet. Pretended being the important word. His ears twitched slightly every time I spoke. I noticed, unfortunately, it had been 6 days since the alley attack. 6 days living inside Logan Pierce's luxury prison suite. 6 days of accidentally sharing breakfast with him, verbally assaulting his decorating choices, pretending his scent didn't affect me, and trying very hard not to think about the fact that he always waited until I sat down before starting meals. That last one bothered me the most, not because it was dominant, because it was considerate, which was honestly more dangerous. You're staring at him again, Maya whispered. I am absolutely not. You have the same expression people get before making catastrophically bad romantic decisions. I'm thinking about murder. See? Romance. I threw a napkin at her face. Logan finally looked up from his tablet. You're both loud. Maya pointed at him dramatically. See? Murder. Ken speaks. I regret teaching you the building access codes. You gave them to me willingly. You threatened my legal team. They were being annoying. I smiled into my coffee before I could stop myself. And Logan noticed. His gaze lingered half a second too long. My pulse immediately betrayed me like the weak little traitor. It was absolutely not. No, we were not doing attraction. We were doing survival. Very different. Very important distinction. Unfortunately, survival apparently now included attending government council meetings, because the city had collectively decided my existence was everyone's business. The council hall sat beneath the oldest district in the city, built from dark stone and polished metal that made the chamber feel ancient and modern at the same time. Massive circular ceilings arched overhead. Pack emblems decorated the walls beside holographic legal displays. Tradition wrapped in technology. Power pretending evolution had happened. The moment I entered beside Logan, the room shifted, not visibly, worse, socially. People stared, some openly, some carefully, some like I was a loaded weapon with anxiety issues. Omegas watched me with something dangerously close to hope. Alphas watched me like they were trying to calculate threat levels. I hated both. "You're tense," Logan murmured beside me. "You brought me into a room full of politicians and emotionally constipated wolves. Obviously I'm tense. You insult people when nervous. I insult people recreationally too." His mouth almost twitched. Again, that tiny, almost smile was becoming a problem. At the center of the chamber stood another alpha I recognized immediately, despite never meeting him before. Adrian Cross. Unlike Logan, Adrian's dominance wasn't cold. It was warm, smooth, inviting. That somehow made him scarier. Golden brown hair brushed neatly away from sharp eyes. Expensive charcoal coat. Relaxed posture. The kind of face designed specifically to convince people to trust bad ideas. When he looked at me, it felt like being studied by someone already 10 steps ahead. "Well," Adrian said softly, "there you are." I instantly disliked how calm he sounded. Logan stepped slightly closer beside me. Tiny movement. Protective. Possessive. The room noticed. Adrian definitely noticed. "Chris Vale," Adrian continued, "you've become very popular. I always dreamed of being government property." A few people coughed suspiciously hard into their hands. Adrian smiled. Unlike Logan's rare, sharp expressions, Adrian smiled easily, beautifully, like he practiced in mirrors. "I think," Adrian said, "you may become something much bigger than property." Encouraging start. He walked closer slowly, hands visible, voice calm enough to lower tension instead of raise it. Interesting. Dangerous. "You could free every Omega in this city." The words landed like stones in water. Ripples everywhere. Around us, council members stiffened. Logan went utterly still. And the worst part? Part of me wanted to hear more, because I remembered the conference room. The relief, the silence after pressure, vanished. I remembered Omegas lifting their heads like they could breathe for the first time. That memory haunted me. "You're assuming I want a revolution," I said carefully. Adrian tilted his head. "Don't you?" Before I could answer, Logan spoke. "No." One word. "Controlled." "Final." Adrian's smile sharpened slightly. "Interesting. You answered for him." "I prevented political manipulation." "You call it manipulation," Adrian said lightly. "Others might call it freedom." The air tightened. Not dominance. Something worse. Ideology. I suddenly wanted alcohol. Or a brick. Possibly both. The meeting dissolved into arguments almost immediately after that. Pack territories. Suppression laws. Omega protections. Public panic. Every conversation somehow circled back to me like I was a biological disaster with paperwork. Meanwhile, my headache kept growing. Because stress was becoming dangerous now. I could feel it spreading accidentally sometimes. Little moments where nearby alpha pressure weakened around me without warning. An alpha council member tried to intimidate a beta assistant halfway through the meeting. The pressure vanished before it landed. The entire room noticed. Again, whispers spread. Someone near the back muttered, "He's doing it unconsciously now." That sentence hit me harder than it should have. Unconsciously, like breathing, like instinct. No, 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 no. I didn't want this becoming instinct. By the time the meeting ended, my nerves felt sandpaper raw, which was how I ended up on the rooftop garden at midnight, wrapped in Logan's coat again. Not because I was cold, because apparently my dignity had abandoned me. The rooftop sat hidden above Blackstone Tower, soft lantern lighting, dark green plants swaying in the wind, rainwater shimmering on stone paths. The city glowed below us in endless silver and neon. Quiet. Finally quiet. Logan stood beside the railing, hands in his pockets. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Strangely, the silence didn't feel uncomfortable. That scared me a little too. I used to think all alphas were pretending, I admitted, finally. Logan glanced at me. Pretending? That the dominance thing was exaggerated. Performance. Social conditioning. And now? I looked down at my hands. Now, I think it's real. Because I felt it sometimes. The pressure, the instinct, not controlling me, but brushing against me constantly like static under skin. I just pushed back, naturally. Like my body refused to accept someone else steering it. When did you realize? Logan asked quietly. I laughed once, without humor. Middle school. Not my favorite memories. An alpha teacher lost control during a student fight. Every omega in the room froze. Every omega except me. I still remembered the horror on the adults' faces afterward. Not concern. Fear. After that, I said, staring at the skyline, people stopped looking at me like an omega. What did they look at you like? I met his eyes. A problem. Something moved across Logan's face. Then, not pity, anger, not at me, at the idea. I was 13, I continued. Do you know how terrifying it is when adults are scared of you? The wind moved through the rooftop garden softly. Logan leaned against the railing beside me. I was raised differently, he admitted. You mean, rich? I mean, trained. His voice had gone quieter, more distant. Strength lessons, control lessons, dominance conditioning. My father believed hesitation was weakness. I frowned slightly. You were a child. To him, I was a future alpha. That explained so much. It physically hurt. I looked at Logan differently then, not softer exactly, but clearer. We really had grown up inside the same cage. Mine had been fear of what I was. His had been expectation of what he had to become. You know what's insane? I murmured. What? You're actually nicer than your face suggests. He looked genuinely offended. My face is perfectly acceptable. It looks like you threaten employees for blinking incorrectly. I have never done that. You considered it, though. His shoulders shook once. Tiny, almost a laugh. God help me. The city lights reflected silver in his eyes when he looked at me after that. Too close. Far too close. Neither of us moved away. My heartbeat turned traitor again. I don't know what you are, Logan said quietly. I swallowed. Comforting, but I know how this city reacts to fear. His voice dropped lower. And I don't want them turning you into something monstrous just because they don't understand you. The words hit somewhere painfully soft inside me. No one had ever said something like that before. Not about me. Not to me. The space between us narrowed. I became aware of everything. His scent, his breathing, the warmth of his body in cold night air, the way his gaze kept dropping briefly to my mouth. Oh no, no, absolutely not. He leaned closer slowly enough to stop, to let me choose. That somehow made it worse, because I almost did. I almost let him kiss me. Then, every alarm in the tower exploded at once. We jerked apart violently. I stared at the ceiling in betrayal. You have got to be kidding me. Nora's voice crackled through the rooftop speakers. Logan. District 7 riot escalation. Multiple packs involved. Pause. Also, somebody leaked Chris's council footage online. Fantastic. Wonderful. Love. Public emotional collapse. District 7 looked like war by the time we arrived. Fire, sirens, rain, and neon, and smoke twisting together through crowded streets. Pack fights had erupted across several blocks simultaneously. Alphas were shoving civilians aside. Police barricades collapsed under panic, and everywhere I looked, people were talking about me. Phones glowed with leaked footage. Quiet Omega, Omega, killer, Alpha breaker. I wanted to throw up. An alpha across the street. Release dominance hard enough to make civilians scream. My panic surged, and something inside me snapped open. The world went silent. Not literally. Instinctively. The pressure vanished across the entire block. Then another. Every alpha froze. Confusion exploded instantly afterward. Some stumbled backward in panic. Others looked horrified. One alpha actually started crying openly, clutching his chest like something essential had been ripped away. Omegas lifted their heads slowly. Betas stared around in shock. The city's invisible hierarchy had disappeared, and chaos rushed in to fill the empty space. "Chris," Logan said sharply, but I could barely hear him. My ability kept spreading, too wide, too far. I felt every collapsing dominance field, like snapping wires in my skull. People screamed. Cars crashed nearby. An alpha officer grabbed another man by the throat, then stopped suddenly, blinking like he'd just woken from hypnosis. Some people looked liberated. Others looked terrified by their own freedom. My knees buckled. Logan caught me instantly. The moment his arms wrapped around me, the panic eased slightly. His scent grounded me. That realization almost killed me emotionally. "Chris," he said again, quieter now, "look at me." I did. The silver in his eyes looked steady, even while the city broke apart around us. "You're okay," he said. "I don't think that's true anymore." For one terrible second, his expression cracked, and I saw it. Fear. Not fear of me. Fear for me. Then, armed council enforcement vehicles arrived. Government officials spilled into the street. Weapons drawn. One woman lifted a tablet, voice sharp through amplified speakers. "Chris Vale is now classified as a biological threat under emergency containment law." The words hollowed out my chest. Around us, people stared. At me, not human, not Omega, threat. Logan's arms tightened around me instinctively. Then I saw it. One of the enforcement officers carried an open classified file. A familiar name flashed across the screen. Logan Pierce. Authorization status. My eyes caught one sentence beneath it. If suppression instability escalates beyond containment parameters, lethal force is approved. My blood went cold. The file was old, not current, but that didn't matter, because Logan had known, from the beginning, and suddenly, every moment between us felt dangerous in an entirely new way. Logan got me out of District 7 before the government could put cuffs on me. I should have been grateful. I should have been shaking from relief, clinging to him, whispering thank you like every Omega in every old story where the Alpha saves the day and everyone forgets to ask whether the Omega wanted saving. Instead, I sat in the back of his car with rainwater soaking my sleeves, emergency lights flashing red and blue across the windows, and one sentence burning behind my eyes. Lethal force is approved. Logan sat beside me, silent. That was how I knew it was true. Not the whole truth, maybe. Not the current truth. But enough. Enough to poison everything. "Chris," he said at last. I laughed once. It sounded wrong. Small, and sharp, and ugly. "Don't." His hands curled against his knees. "Let me explain." "Oh, good. I love explanations after finding out someone had a government-approved murder option for me." His face tightened like I had struck him. Good. I wanted it to hurt. I wanted something in him to hurt the way my chest hurt. Like all the fragile warmth I'd stupidly let grow there had been crushed under a boot. "That authorization was issued before I knew you," he said. "Before you knew me," I repeated. "Right. Of course. That makes it fine." "No. Did you know?" Silence. The car moved through the city, too smooth, too quiet, too expensive for the kind of conversation that should have happened in a burning alley. I turned toward him slowly. "Did you know, Logan?" His eyes met mine. Yes. Something inside me went still. Not cold like my power. Empty. I nodded. Once. Like my body needed a physical way to accept betrayal. "You didn't stop seeing me as dangerous," I said. His breath caught. I kept going because, if I stopped, I'd break. "You just started wanting the dangerous thing." "Chris," No, don't say my name like that. His mouth closed. I looked away first, because I hated that part of me still wanted him to reach for me. Hated that my body remembered his arms around me in District 7. Hated that shelter could become a cage so easily. When the car stopped outside Blackstone Tower, Logan didn't move to open the door. "Stay tonight," he said quietly. "Please. The city isn't safe." I almost laughed again. Instead, I whispered, "Neither were you." That did it. The control cracked across his face for 1 second. Just one, then it was gone. But I saw it. I always saw too much. "I won't force you," he said. That hurt worse than if he had argued, because he meant it. Because forcing me would prove everything I feared. I stepped out of the car wearing his coat for the last time, and pulled it off my shoulders. Rain hit me immediately. Cold enough to sting. I handed the coat back. Logan didn't take it at first. "Chris, goodbye, Logan." His fingers closed around the fabric. I walked away before I could forgive him. Maya's apartment smelled like instant noodles, antiseptic, and emotional safety. It was small, warm, chaotic, and aggressively alive. Plants crowded the windowsill in mismatched pots. Medical textbooks formed unstable towers near the couch. Takeout containers balanced on the coffee table beside 3 blankets, 2 mugs, and 1 sock nobody claimed ownership of. The second I stepped inside, Maya wrapped me in her arms so hard my ribs protested. "I will kill him," she said into my hair. "Get in line." "I mean it." "I know. I brought my paramedic scissors home." "That feels concerning. They're multi-purpose." I laughed, then immediately started crying. Horrible. Embarrassing. Full-body crying, too. The kind where breathing becomes a group project and your face decides dignity is optional. Maya held on. She didn't tell me it was okay. Good. Because it wasn't. For 3 days, I became a blanket-based life form. I ignored calls. I ignored messages. I ignored the news until Maya physically took my phone away and announced, "You are not allowed to doom-scroll government debates about whether you count as a person before breakfast." I wasn't doom-scrolling. You typed biological threat rights into the search bar. That's research. That's depression with Wi-Fi. She shoved toast into my hand. I ate it, because arguing with Maya required energy I didn't have. Meanwhile, the city got worse. Outside our windows, sirens came and went. News drones hummed over the buildings. Omega rights groups filled the streets. Alpha coalitions demanded emergency restrictions. Adrian Cross appeared on every major broadcast. Beautiful and tragic, and terrifyingly reasonable. "Chris Vale is not the enemy," he said on one screen. "He is proof that our society was built on fear." Then he smiled, and somehow made revolution sound like a luxury product. Maya muted him. "He's too hot to be trusted," she said. "That's discriminatory. That's survival." I curled deeper into my blanket. Logan did not appear publicly. That bothered me, which bothered me more. On the 4th day, Eli came. He stood in our doorway in a cream coat that probably cost more than our refrigerator, looking pale and furious in a quiet Omega way. "I'm not here for him," he said quickly. Maya blocked half the doorway with her body. "Good, because I have scissors." "I believe you." I sat up on the couch, blanket around my shoulders. "Eli?" His expression softened when he saw me, then hardened again. "He should have told you." The words were simple. No defense. No excuse. Just truth. My throat tightened. "Yes," I said. Eli came in and sat carefully on the edge of the armchair. For a moment, he looked younger than he was. They raised him to make those choices before he understood what choice meant. Eli said, "But that doesn't absolve him." Maya nodded approvingly. "Good. I like this one." Eli looked at me. "He hasn't slept." I flinched, angry at myself for caring. "He's canceled all private meetings," Eli continued. "Refused council protection. Nora said he's been rewriting legal proposals by hand because he doesn't trust anyone else." "Why are you telling me this?" Because I went to yell at him, Eli said. That surprised a laugh out of me. You yelled at Logan? I spoke firmly. Murder Ken survived? Maya whispered. Proud of you. Eli's mouth twitched. Then his face grew serious. I told him, dominance means nothing if the person he wants most can walk away from him. My chest hurt. He didn't say anything, Eli added. That was how I knew he heard me. Across the city, Logan Pierce was apparently having the worst emotional growth of his life. Good. Terrible. Good. I hated feelings. They were poorly designed. That evening, Nora sent Maya a file. Not to me, to Maya, because Nora Quinn understood warfare. Maya opened it at the kitchen table, while I pretended not to care from the couch. Oh, she said. I looked up. What? Logan is speaking tonight. My stomach dropped. Where? Public Broadcast Hall. Every major screen in the city carried the feed. Maya didn't ask if I wanted to watch. She just turned on the old wall monitor, placed a bowl of noodles in my lap, and sat beside me like a guard dog with better eyeliner. The Public Broadcast Hall was built for official statements, not revolutions. White stone, blue-black banners, government seals behind the podium, rows of officials arranged like vultures pretending to be furniture. Then Logan walked onto the stage. The room changed, even through the screen. He looked exhausted, still beautiful, annoyingly. Black suit, no tie, hair slightly less perfect than usual. His face controlled, but not cold, not empty. The reporters started shouting questions immediately. Alpha Pierce, do you support emergency containment? Is Chris Vale under your protection? Did your pack conceal information from the council? Logan reached the podium. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't release dominance. He simply looked at them until silence fell. Old habit, old power. Then he did something no one expected. He stepped back from the podium, away from the seal, away from the center. When I was a child, he said, I was taught that control was responsibility. The room became unnaturally still. I was taught that dominance protected order, that fear prevented chaos, that hierarchy was nature. My fingers tightened around the bowl. Maya quietly took it before I spilled hot noodles on myself. Logan continued, I believed those things because I was rewarded for believing them, because every system around me was designed to make obedience look like loyalty. Officials shifted behind him. Someone looked horrified. Nora, visible near the side entrance, looked like she was mentally daring anyone to interrupt, possibly with legal consequences, possibly with a stapler. Then Logan looked directly into the camera, and somehow, impossibly, it felt like he was looking at me. I was wrong. My breath stopped. The right to choose cannot exist where coercion is treated as tradition. The right to love cannot exist where instinct is used as a weapon, and loyalty forced by pressure is not loyalty. His jaw tightened. Then he said the line that broke the city open. If loyalty requires fear, then it was never loyalty. For several seconds, no one spoke. Then, the hall erupted. Reporters shouted. Officials stood. One alpha councilman slammed a hand on the table. Nora moved with terrifying calm toward him, tablet in hand, and whatever she said made him sit back down immediately. Maya whispered, I want to be her when I grow up. But I couldn't laugh. I couldn't move. Because Logan kept speaking. He proposed emergency legislation against pheromone coercion, equal representation in pack councils, legal autonomy, protections for omegas, investigation into containment authorizations. Every sentence burned something down, not perfectly, not enough, but publicly, irreversibly, and he never said my name, not once. That was what finally made me cry, because he wasn't using me as symbol, not as proof, not as weapon, not even as apology. He was choosing, on his own. The broadcast ended in chaos. The screen went dark. For a long moment, Maya and I sat in silence. Then she handed me a tissue. He's still a red flag, she said gently. I wiped my face. Yeah, maybe maroon. I laughed through tears. Ugly, Perfect. Painful. On the dark screen, my reflection looked back at me. Tired, swollen-eyed, wrapped in blankets, still terrified of becoming something the world could use. But for the first time since District 7, I wondered if Logan Pierce had finally seen me clearly, not as immunity, not as danger, not as the Omega who could break the world, as Chris, just Chris, and somehow that hurt more than everything else. The city burned brightest when it was afraid. Central City Square had become a storm of lights, rain, banners, drones, sirens, and thousands of bodies pressed together beneath the black sky. Pack enforcement formed silver lines around the crowd. Government vehicles blocked every street. News screens flashed my face 30 feet tall above the square. Chris Vale, threat or revolution? I hated that photo. My hair looked terrible. Really? I muttered from beneath Maya's borrowed hood. They couldn't use one where I looked less like a haunted raccoon? Maya gripped my sleeve. Focus. Celebrity disaster. At the center of the square, Adrian Cross stood on a raised platform like a man born to be believed. Rain slid over his perfect coat. His golden hair was damp, but still unfairly elegant. Behind him, pack leaders and council members watched with the rigid expressions of people realizing they had lost control of the story. Adrian raised his hands. The crowd quieted. That was the dangerous thing about him. He didn't need to force people. He made fear sound reasonable. Tonight, Adrian said, voice carrying across the square, we stand at the edge of a new age. An Omega exists who can erase the foundation of our society. Alpha authority, pack order, biological stability. The crowd stirred. Omegas looked afraid. Alphas looked offended. Betas looked like they wanted to go home and pay taxes in peace. Adrian turned slightly, letting the cameras catch his profile. Chris Vale can free you, he said. My stomach twisted. Then his voice sharpened. Or he can destroy you. There it was, the hook, the knife under the ribbon. Maya whispered, I hate hot villains. Same. Pack enforcement began moving through the crowd, not toward Adrian, toward me. Apparently my hood was not as stealthy as we had hoped. One officer pointed, there. Maya said something very unladylike. I ran. The square exploded around me. People shouted. Drones dipped lower. Enforcement units pushed through the crowd. Alpha pressure burst from every direction as leaders tried to regain control, and my body answered. Cold gathered in my chest. Not yet, I told it. Not yet. I shoved between two panicking betas, slipped under a barrier, and almost crashed directly into a wall of black-coated Pierce security. For one terrifying second, I thought Logan had sent them. Then they moved aside, and he was there, standing in the rain like the end of every bad decision I had ever made. Logan Pierce looked exhausted, furious, and heartbreakingly real. No perfect mask, no cold distance, just him. Chris, he said. My name in his voice nearly broke me. Behind me, enforcement pushed closer. Above us, Adrian's voice thundered through the speakers. Bring him forward. Let the city see what power without restraint becomes. Logan stepped toward me. I stepped back. His face changed. Pain, immediate, and quiet. He stopped. Good, that mattered. Even now, with the city screaming around us, he stopped. No pride left? I asked, my voice shaking. None, he said. No orders? No. No protective custody? His mouth tightened. Never again. The words hit harder than I expected. Rain ran down my face. Maybe some of it wasn't rain. I don't know how to trust you, I admitted. I know. I wanted to. I know. That makes it worse. His eyes held mine. Yes. God, I hated honest men. They were so inconvenient. During emotional collapse, enforcement shouted behind us. Logan didn't look away. Chris, he said, softer. I cannot undo what I knew. I cannot make that file disappear. I can only tell you that every choice I make now belongs to me. Not the council, not my father, not my rank. My chest hurt. What if this disappears tomorrow? I asked. He went still. My ability, my weird little biological disaster. What if I wake up ordinary? What if I can't suppress anything anymore? My voice cracked. Would you still stay? Logan answered instantly. No hesitation. No dramatic pause. I'd stay if the world forgot what you are. My breath caught. He stepped closer, slow enough for me to refuse. I'd stay if you never silenced another alpha in your life. Another step. I'd stay if you were impossible. Ordinary, angry, afraid, laughing at my furniture, stealing my coffee. My mouth trembled. I'd stay because you're you. The square noise faded. For one fragile second, there was only rain and Logan and the terrible, beautiful fact that I believed him. Then Adrian's voice cut through everything. Look at them, he shouted. Even Pierce protects the weapon because he wants to own it. Logan's eyes darkened. I touched his sleeve before he could turn. No. He looked at me. I swallowed the fear burning up my throat. He doesn't lose if you fight him. Adrian had built the square into a trap. If Logan attacked, it proved alpha violence. If I ran, it proved danger. If they captured me, they won. So I did the one thing nobody expected. I walked toward the platform. Maya shouted behind me. Logan moved with me, not ahead. Beside, the difference nearly made me cry again. Pack enforcement raised weapons. Alphas released dominance in warning waves, layered so thick the air shook. Omegas around me flinched. Betas staggered. The square bowed beneath invisible pressure. I stopped at the base of the platform and looked up at Adrian. He smiled down at me like he had already won. There you are, he said. The Omega, who could break the world. I looked around the square, at the terrified faces, at the hopeful ones, at the angry ones, at people who had spent their whole lives confusing instinct with destiny. No, I said. My voice was quiet, too quiet for the crowd, but the cameras caught it. The speakers carried it. I'm the Omega, who is tired of everyone deciding what my existence means. Adrian's smile thinned. Chris, he said gently, this is bigger than you. That's what everyone says right before using me. A ripple moved through the crowd. Somebody laughed. Bless them. Adrian's eyes flashed. You don't understand what you can become. I smiled sadly. No. You don't understand what I refuse to become. Then I let go, not like District 7. Not panic, not collapse. Choice. I reached inward toward that cold silence I had spent my whole life fearing. The place inside me where alpha pressure went to die. The place everyone called abnormal, dangerous, impossible. For once, I did not push it away. I opened it. The effect spread from me in a perfect, silent wave. Across the platform, across the square, across the city, every dominance field vanished. Not broken, paused. The world inhaled, then nothing, no pressure, no forced submission, no biological command, hiding inside scent and voice and posture. The square became emotionally weightless. Alphas gasped as if stripped naked in public. Some grabbed their throats. Some fell to their knees. One pack leader began sobbing, not from pain, but from the shock of having no one beneath him. Omegas lifted their heads, not all at once, slowly, carefully, like they were afraid freedom might bite. Betas stared around, stunned by a silence they had never realized they were missing. Adrian swayed on the platform. For the first time, his charm had nowhere to land. Stand with me, he ordered the crowd. No one moved. His face tightened. I said, stand with me. Still nothing, because no instinct carried his command. No fear amplified his voice. No hierarchy made obedience easier than thought. Every person had to choose, and that was the thing Adrian had never trusted people to do. Logan stood beside me, utterly still, without dominance, without pressure, without the invisible crown the world had built into his blood. He looked at me, just looked, and smiled. Not sharp, not controlled, soft, proud. My knees nearly gave out. This time, when he reached for me, I reached back. The silence lasted only minutes. But minutes were enough. Enough for pack enforcers to lower their weapons by choice. Enough for omegas to step away from handlers. Enough for alphas to hear themselves without the roar of dominance in their blood. Enough for the city to realize biology had never been the same thing as justice. When my power faded, sound returned first. Rain, breathing, someone crying. Then the crowd erupted, not in violence, in refusal, no containment. Equal councils. Choice law now. Adrian Cross stood alone on his platform, beautiful and powerless. Maya appeared at my side, soaking wet and furious. Never do that again without warning me. I almost had personal growth. I laughed so hard I almost collapsed. Logan caught me. Of course he did. But he did not hold me too tightly, and somehow, that was the most romantic thing he had ever done. 3 months later, the city still hadn't decided whether to call what happened in Central Square a crisis, a miracle, or the most successful public nervous breakdown in modern pack history. Maya voted for the last one. Legally, everything changed slowly. Socially, everything changed loudly. Anti-coercion laws passed first, then Omega autonomy protections, then mixed dynamic pack councils. The old leaders complained so much that Nora started keeping a spreadsheet titled Men Who Mistake Consequences for Oppression. Logan framed it. Their relationship improved dramatically, mostly through mutual threats. Eli started advocacy programs for young Omegas and became terrifyingly popular because he looked soft but could dismantle an alpha traditionalist in under 3 sentences. Adrian was removed from council influence after evidence surfaced that he had funded several riots. Nora found the evidence. No one asked how. Smart people, mostly. As for me, I moved back into Blackstone Tower. Voluntarily, mostly. My apartment lease had expired. Maya said I was emotionally nesting in denial, and Logan had replaced one entire floor of his penthouse with plants, warm lighting, ugly blankets, and a kitchen that actually looked used. This is suspiciously cozy, I told him the first night. You said it looked like a villain monologues here, and now it looks like a villain went to therapy. He considered that accurate. We were still not normal. Obviously, normal couples argued about dishes. Logan and I argued about whether growling at rude council members counted as coercive behavior. It was barely a growl, he said one morning. It made a senator apologize to a chair. He was rude to the chair. Maya, who had appeared for breakfast uninvited as usual, pointed her fork at him. I'm with Murder Ken on this one. I gasped. Betrayal. You burned the pancakes. I was emotionally distracted. You were watching Logan cut fruit like it was foreplay. I choked on my coffee. Logan looked very interested. Was it? No. Maya grinned. His ears turned red. Traitor, I whispered. Our kitchen was chaos that morning. Real chaos. Warm chaos. Maya sat cross-legged on the counter, despite Logan's visible suffering. Eli was at the table, reviewing program applications. Nora stood near the coffee machine, answering 3 calls at once and terrifying someone named Martin into compliance. And Logan stood at the stove, tall, dangerous, impossibly gentle, arguing with Maya about pancake thickness like this was the most serious diplomatic crisis of his life. A young Omega from Eli's program hovered near the doorway, watching everything with wide eyes. He couldn't have been more than 16. Soft hoodie, nervous hands, the careful posture of someone taught to take up less space than his own body needed. I knew that posture. I hated that I knew it. He looked at Logan, then at me. So, he asked quietly, how do you resist alpha pressure? The kitchen softened. Even Maya stopped chewing. I looked at Logan. He looked back. No dominance, no command, no expectation, just warmth, just choice. I smiled. The trick isn't resisting, I said. The young Omega frowned slightly. I leaned back against the counter, close enough that Logan's sleeve brushed mine. It's remembering you're allowed to choose. Logan's hand found mine under the counter. He did not grip. He offered. I chose to hold on, and for once, instinct had nothing to do with it.